weather, well, Sunday will be rather cloudy at times with scattered wintry showers, though with sunny intervals as well. It'll be rather cold with afternoon temperatures around 5 centigrade, 41 Fahrenheit. Winds moderate or fresh and northeasterly. And that's all we have for you this Saturday here on London Weekend Television. We'll see you in not too many hours' time. A safe and peaceful night to you all. Good night. And the time now just coming up to a minute and a half past 1 o'clock. And don't forget to switch off your sets and carefully remove the mains plug from the socket. Good night.
And now a final look at the London Weekend Television area weather forecast. The rest of the night will be dry with clear periods developing, leading to some mist patches in rural areas around dawn. And the minimum temperatures overnight will be 9 degrees centigrade, 48 Fahrenheit. And tomorrow will start bright but will become rather cloudy with showers developing, especially in the east. The temperatures tomorrow will rise to about 18 degrees centigrade. That's 64 Fahrenheit. That's all from the weather forecast. And that's all we have for you tonight here on the South Bank. We've very much enjoyed your company this evening and hope, of course, that you'll be with us again tomorrow. And with that in mind, here's a look at Sunday evening's viewing.
Like the beat, beat, beat of the tom-tom when the jungle shadows fall, like the tick-tick-tock of the stately clock as it stands against the wall, like the drip, drip, drip of the raindrops when the summer shower is through. So a voice within me keeps repeating you, 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 night and day. You are the one, only you beneath the moon and under the sun. Whether near to me or far, it's no matter, darling, where you are. I think of you night and day, day and night. Why is it so that this longing for you follows wherever I go in the road?
That's your Sunday evening viewing here on London Weekend Television. But now from us all here at the South Bank, I'd like to wish you a very good night and leave you with a final look at the clock. And it's 12:50 and 5 seconds.
Under the hide of me, there's an old sun.
Well, here at London Weekend Television, we're closing down. But independent local radio, including the 2 London stations, LBC and Capital, are on the air throughout the night with interesting and entertaining programs.
Spend my life making love to you day and night, night and day, night and day. Under the hide of me, there's an ocean making love to you day and night, night and day.
And just let me remind you now to switch off your set, and as an added safety precaution, remove the mains plug carefully from the wall socket. Good night again.
And now a last look at the weather for the London Weekend Television area tomorrow. Well, there's going to be some sunshine, but also showers, some heavy and prolonged. But it will be a little warmer, with the temperature reaching about 16 degrees centigrade, 61 degrees Fahrenheit. And now our daily bulletin on the condition of the Pope from ITN. And the news is that he's making good progress. You may be interested to know that we'll be looking at the motives of the man who tried to kill the Pope and the measures that are taken to protect him in Credo tomorrow at 6. And there we end our programmes for tonight, which I hope you enjoyed. And tomorrow we've got lots more lined up for you. And here's a rundown of our programmes tomorrow evening from 7:15, when we start a new series about folk in an English village, Shillingbury Tales. Lots of good things in store for you tomorrow night, when I hope I'll once again have the pleasure of your company. And until then, this is Hilary Osborne on behalf of all of us here at London Weekend Television, wishing you all a very good night. And a last look at the clock, it's midnight.
Now here's a last look at the London Weekend Television area weather forecast. On Monday, most places will be dry, warm and mainly sunny, with no more than a shower or two here and there later in the afternoon. Maximum temperature 21 degrees centigrade, 70 degrees Fahrenheit, just a little lower than today, with a light south to southeasterly wind. And that's the weather. And that look at the weather brings us to the end of our programmes for this weekend. Thank you for being with us. We'll be on the air again at 5:15 on Friday. And don't forget that there's a special edition of World of Sport at 11:15 next Saturday, with full uninterrupted coverage of the FA Cup final. Oh, and talking of football, well done Enfield for winning the FA Trophy this weekend. Well, the time is now 1:10, and we're closing down. Oh, and by the way, for all those of you who've always wondered why we never appear in vision after midnight on Sundays, I can let you into a little secret. It is, of course, because the camera turns into a pumpkin. Well, before the cleaners come in and start hoovering round us, let me just remind you that although we're closing down, independent local radio, including the two London stations LBC and Capital, are on the air throughout the night with interesting and entertaining programmes. So on behalf of everyone here at the South Bank, this is Sue Peacock wishing you a very peaceful night and a good week. Good night.
Many more will
Just a final reminder to switch off your set, and as an added safety precaution, carefully remove the mains plug of your television from the wall socket. Good night. Well, now let's take a last look at the weather forecast for Sunday. And after a foggy start, the weather will slowly brighten during the morning so that most places will have some afternoon sunshine. Temperatures generally will be 6 degrees centigrade, 43 degrees Fahrenheit, although they may be lower in the few places where fog persists all day. Winds will be light, southwesterly. Well, the time is now just coming up. In fact, in 5 seconds it will be exactly 2:30. And we haven't got any more programmes to show you, not even unbilled ones. We'll be on the air again at 9:05 with Doctor, but if you still feel like some company, remember that independent local radio stations are on the air 24 hours a day with music, news and chat. That includes LBC and Capital in the London area. But from all of us here at the South Bank, it's a very good night.
Well, we begin our Christmas Day on London Weekend Television at 9 o'clock this morning with the film Journey Back to Oz. But now, until 9, from me, Peter Lewis, as duly elected spokesman for the rest of the South Bank gang, have a very happy Christmas, and may whatever you find in your stockings fulfill your wildest dreams. The time, well, we're nearly 32 and a half minutes into Christmas Day. Well, now just our final safety check, the part where I remind you to switch off your set. Once again, from all of us here, Happy Christmas.
Thank you for being with us. We'll be on the air again at 5:15 on Friday. And don't forget that there's a special edition of World of Sport at 11:15 next Saturday with full uninterrupted coverage of the FA Cup final. Oh, and talking of football, well done Enfield for winning the FA Trophy this weekend. Well, the time is now 1:10 and we're closing down. Oh, and by the way, for all those of you who've always wondered why we never appear in vision after midnight on Sundays, I can let you into a little secret. It is, of course, because the camera turns into a pumpkin. Well, before the cleaners come in and start hoovering around us, let me just remind you that although we're closing down, independent local radio, including the two London stations LBC and Capital, are on the air throughout the night with interesting and entertaining programmes. So on behalf of everyone here at the South Bank, this is Sue Peacock wishing you a very peaceful night and a good week. Good night.
Just a final reminder to switch off your set, and as an added safety precaution, carefully remove the mains plug of your television from the wall socket. Good night.
Thousands of people can't get their local news from the papers. Talking newspapers are a vital link with the community for visually and physically handicapped people, and they need your help. Volunteers are needed to prepare, copy and dispatch talking newspapers in your area. Now, can you help? Write to Talking Newspapers, Box 33, London SE1 9LT.
It's so valuable for people like me.
We regret that it will not be possible to bring you the scheduled edition of Close tonight. This, I'm afraid, is due to problems completely outside our control. Now, a check on the weather forecast for the London weekend television area. Saturday will start rather misty, but this will soon clear, and then the day will be warm and dry with some sunshine. Highest temperature 22 degrees centigrade, 72 Fahrenheit, rather similar to Friday. The wind southwesterly, gradually freshening during the day, and there may be some rain by evening. But of course we're going to skip that last line. It couldn't possibly rain, could it? It's summer. But now seems a pretty good time to take a look at our London weekend entertainment for Saturday. There we are. I knew it was there somewhere. I had complete confidence. Kicking off at 9:25 after TVAM with a look at what's on in the area, apart from our programmes, that is. Then after Sesame Street and number 73, Dickie Davis hosts another action-packed afternoon in World of Sport. The Smurfs and the Fonz begin our evening. Then at 6:05, Lee Majors is the fall guy. Having obviously completed his most spectacular leap of the series, he lands smack in the Mediterranean. And talking of spectacular stunts, at 7, just amazing. Some quite extraordinary and stomach-turning feats. But if you can keep your equilibrium after that, we can join Chaz and Dave for a knees up. And as you can see at 8:35, Super Cop T.J. Hooker finds himself on the Thief's Highway. We have something a little unexpected at 9:30. Our play, Heather Ann, at 10:15, is the story of a Cornish fisherman involved in a sort of love triangle with the added complication of a torpedo hanging in his net. Then, after the news headlines, we'll be shooting pool. Programmes tomorrow on London Weekend Television. But now, from me, Peter Lewis, on behalf of our team here on the South Bank, I hope that you have a restful and refreshing night, and that your weekend is a marvellous one for you, and that the weather holds. It certainly looks as though it's going to do that. We'll be back, of course, in the morning, as you've just seen. But in the meantime, from all of us here, good night, and remember that LBC and Capital, your London independent local radio stations, will be with you throughout the night. The time is just coming up to 18 minutes past midnight. Good night. Now, just the last thing I must do is remind you to switch off your set. Good night again.
And now our last look at the weather forecast for the London Weekend Television area. Sunday should be another fairly reasonable day, dry with some sunshine at times, and if anything a shade warmer than today, with temperatures around 22 degrees centigrade, 72 degrees Fahrenheit, and a light or moderate westerly wind. And that's the weather. Well, from Sunday's weather, let's take a look at Sunday's programmes. At 6:40, Anne Harrod Rees introduces the fourth quarter-final of the National School Choir Competition. This week's contestants are from schools in Yorkshire, Sussex, Staffordshire and Devon. At 7:15, there's more comedy with Peter Bowles and James Bolam in Only When I Laugh. This week's episode is called When Did You Last See Your Father? An old drunk arrives at the hospital looking for his son, whom he used to call Prince Charming. But will a grown-up Prince Charming recognise his father? Well, you can find out in Only When I Laugh at 7:15. At 7:45, ITN reporter Anthony Carthew looks back at the second week of the Royal Tour, a week in which the Prince and Princess of Wales visited Ottawa and Newfoundland. And at 8:15, we continue the drama series set in Suffolk in World War II, We'll Meet Again. Ronnie Derham returns home from the war in North Africa, and Vera learns Letty's secret. Susanna York and Michael J. Shannon star in We'll Meet Again at 8:15. The news at 9:15 is followed by the second of four major dramas looking at different aspects of education. This week, Graham Crowden, Derek O'Connor and Raina O'Grady star in the story of a family who decide to educate their children at home and who are forced to defend their decision in court. Flying into the Wind is at 9:30. And at 10:50, following the London news headlines, there's drama with a touch of humour, Trapper John, a series which picks up the story of Dr. John McIntyre 25 years after he served as a surgeon in a MASH unit in Korea. And our programmes come to a close at 11:50. Well, that's all from us for tonight. Just before we go, let me remind you about independent local radio. In the London area, of course, that includes LBC and Capital. They're on the air all night with lots to interest you. But from us, with the time very nearly 20 minutes past midnight, it's a very good night. Well, my final duty of the evening is to remind you to switch off your set. Oh, and watch out for vampires, won't you?
The weather forecast for the London Weekend Television area. Saturday will start dull and misty, but it will become brighter for a time before more cloud with a little rain spreads from the west during the afternoon. Temperatures higher than on Friday, reaching 20 degrees centigrade, 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds increasing to a moderate southerly. Well, I don't think we should dwell too long on that sort of stuff. Let's talk instead about the good things for Saturday evening on London Weekend Television. At 5:05, as you can see there, we kick off with the Crankies Club, and among the guests will be Pookie's Knackenburger. I just wanted to see if I could say it at this time of the morning. Lee Majors stars in P.S. I Love You, this week's Fall Guy adventure at 5:35. Remember that the spotlight could be turned on you when we run a quick check on the population to discover who's game for a laugh. That's at 6:30. At 7:30, Lenny Bennett's celebrities come in little boxes as usual, in punchlines. And taking us up to the news, Robert Wagner and Stephanie Powers in Heart to Heart. In this story, they give poor old Max a lethal cigar as a going-away present. I expect they'll deny all knowledge of it then. Our adult movie is at 9:15. Burt Reynolds stars in The Mean Machine. An ex-pro footballer finds himself in prison and immediately upsets the warden, an American football fanatic, by refusing to coach the formidable Guards team. Instead, he forms his own prisoners team. And of course, it's inevitable that the needle match to end all needle matches must take place. Dickie Davis will be at Eldon Square, Newcastle upon Tyne, for International Snooker at 11:30. 1 hour later, Clive James, the well-known colonial, will be explaining the subtle difference between good and bad taste on television. And hard on the heels of the news, a film of one of the top bands of the 70s, the Boomtown Rats. Programs for Saturday night. Now, until this morning at 9:25, we have to part company, but as you realise, that's just a few hours away. Remember that London's independent local radio stations, LBC and Capital, will be on the air throughout the night. In the meantime, from me, Peter Lewis, on behalf of the riverfolk here on the South Bank, have a restful and refreshing sleep, and despite the rather soggy weather, a good weekend. The time has just passed 9 minutes past 2. Well, if you're still around and haven't rushed off to bed after hearing that time check, may I remind you to switch off your set. Good morning. And now the weather forecast for the London weekend television area. Saturday will be dry and sunny, with the highest temperature of around 11 degrees centigrade, 52 Fahrenheit, much the same as on Friday. Winds will be light, mainly northerly. And the outlook for Sunday, dry with sunny periods after overnight frost and fog patches. Well, having settled the meteorological side of the weekend, and what a good settlement too, let's take a stroll through the entertainment. Saturday night on London Weekend Television.
I'm your partner in crime. Used to be good, but since I met you, can't stop stealing a kiss or two from you.
And you're my partner in crime. Led me astray and I just let you know we're two of a kind, having a marvelous time.
I've got this awful criminal habit. I keep taking your hand. You seem glad when I grab it,
Which is deplorable,
but so adorable. And though crime doesn't pay, try as I may, I can't forget you. Guess who's stolen my heart? It was my partner in crime. It isn't just a case of who done it. Both of us are to blame. I'm the one who begun it. bodies are kissable.
It was permissible.
And though crime doesn't pay, try as I may, I can't forget you. Guess who's stolen my heart? It was my partner in crime.
Programmes for Saturday night on London Weekend Television. Saturday morning begins for us at 9:25. But until then, we have to part company, but it's just for a few hours. So from me, Peter Lewis, on behalf of our assembled riverfolk here on the South Bank, have a refreshing night and a good weekend. If the weather has anything to do with it, that shouldn't be difficult. Remember that London's independent local radio stations, LBC and Capital, will be on the air throughout the night. The time now, rapidly approaching 18 minutes past 1 o'clock. Finally, can I just remind you to switch off your set. Good morning. Now, the Christmas Eve weather for the London Weekend Television area. It will be rather cloudy, with some rain or drizzle at times, mostly late in the day. Some brighter spells are also likely, and it will be very mild again, with highest temperatures near 13 degrees centigrade, 55 Fahrenheit. Winds will be fresh, south to southwesterly. Now let's have a quick run through the London Weekend Television stocking for this Christmas Eve. At 5:15, John and Ponch are keeping a Christmas watch in chips. And there's a special Christmas edition of Punchlines at 6:10. At 6:45, it's pantomime time in 3-2-1, and the pantomime is Dick Whittington. An hour later, Cilla Black throws quite a party. The guests include Frankie Howard, George Benson, Julio Iglesias and the Bee Gees. It seems that Jonathan and Jennifer Hart spend most of their time unravelling some dodgy deed or other, and they don't get a rest even at Christmas. At 10 o'clock, the feature film of Agatha Christie's Murder is Easy. Bill Bixby, whose party trick you may remember was turning green and bursting out of his shirts, joins Leslie Ann Down in this murder thriller about an elderly lady who's the only one to know the secret behind a series of deaths in her home village. That's at 10 o'clock. Finally, at 11:45, from St Mary's Cathedral, Newcastle upon Tyne, Midnight Mass. Christmas Eve on London Weekend Television. And Christmas Eve begins for us at 9:25 in the morning. But until then, from me, Peter Lewis, on behalf of our South Bank riverfolk, have a refreshing night and, of course, a wonderful Christmas. Remember that our colleagues at London's independent local radio stations, LBC and Capital, will be on the air throughout the night. The time now, in about 15 seconds, it will be 8 minutes past midnight. Now, the weather forecast for the London Weekend television area. Sunday will be another dry day, and after a dull start, it should brighten up, and there'll be some sunshine. Temperatures will be similar to Saturday's, reaching 14 degrees centigrade, 57 Fahrenheit. Winds will be moderate, northeasterly. But there's nothing moderate about Sunday entertainment on London Weekend. Looking at the latter end of the day, at 4 o'clock, an evil baron turns Sir Terry into a dog. It doesn't say what breed. Fortunately, this all happens in the Smurfs. At 4:30, a change of programme. We're now showing an episode of Just William, as a tribute to Diana Dawes. Bullseye is at 5, and half an hour later, Survival Special focuses on an incredibly acrobatic eagle. Harry Seacombe's Highway takes him to the beautiful Dorset town of Wimborne Minster. That's at 6:45. At 7:15, we're all invited to a knees-up. Things are a bit uncertain at 7:45 in a new series called Surprise, Surprise. One thing I do know is that you can take part in a phone-in game. At 9, Marja slips deeper into a life of vice and crime in Part 2 of 79 Park Avenue. At 10:30, the South Bank Show explores the world of Evan Hunter, who shocked America in the 50s with the Blackboard Jungle. Now he can be found on the 87th Precinct using the pseudonym Ed McBain. And we stay on the west side of the Atlantic at just after 11:30 for a report on young marriage in the American documentary. Programmes for Sunday. TVAM will start the day at 7:25 and we begin at 9:25. But if you'd like to carry on for a few more hours, London's independent local radio stations, LBC and Capital, will be on the air throughout the night. But now, from me, Peter Lewis, on behalf of our South Bank team, have a refreshing night and a good Sunday. The time has just passed 3 minutes past 2. the weather forecast for the London Weekend television area. Sunday will start wet and windy, but by late morning or early afternoon the rain will clear to give some bright intervals, and perhaps a shower from time to time. It will be rather cool with the highest temperature around 17 degrees centigrade, 63 Fahrenheit. Winds west, northwesterly, fresh to strong. Perhaps not the ideal weather for tripping along the highway, but that won't deter Harry Seacombe. He'll be heading for the Lake District to meet Anna Neagle and Ken Dodd. That's at 6:45 this evening. The game for grown-ups, Child's Play, is at 7:15. In the chair, of course, Michael Aspel. The players, Wendy Craig and Kenneth Williams. At 7:45, part one of our two-part dramatisation of Shirley Conran's best-selling novel, Lace. A story of bitterness and revenge. A story of three young women with a dark secret. Following the news, A Married Man. A drama in 4 parts about a successful barrister who suddenly rejects his marriage and his lifestyle in an effort to recapture the ideals of his youth. Anthony Hopkins stars in A Married Man at 10 o'clock. At just after 11:15, one of Britain's leading actors and veteran of Hollywood, James Mason, talks to Tony Bilbo about his life and career. The conversation took place a few weeks before James Mason's death last July. Programmes for Sunday night. TVAM begins Sunday morning at 7:25 with Good Morning Britain, and we'll be back at 9:25. Of course, if you feel that the night is still young, London's independent local radio stations, LBC and Capital, will be on the air throughout. But for the moment, from me, Peter Lewis, on behalf of our riverfolk here on the South Bank, have a refreshing night and a good Sunday. The time, in about 25 seconds, will be 9 minutes to 1. Just before we go, can I remind you to switch off your set? Good morning.
And now a last look at the weather forecast for the London Weekend television area. Monday will be a cloudy and quite wet day with rain from time to time. A few heavy bursts of rain are likely, but there will also be some drier intervals. It'll stay mild, though not quite as warm as recently, temperatures in the region of 13 degrees centigrade, 55 degrees Fahrenheit, and there'll be a fresh southerly wind. And that's the weather. And that look at the weather brings us to the end of another weekend. Thank you for your company. TVAM is on the air at 25 past 6 in the morning, and between now and then, music, news and chat feature on the 2 independent local radio stations in the London area, which are on the air 24 hours a day. That's LBC and Capital. As for us, we'll be here again at 5:15 on Friday. Until then, with the time approaching 26 minutes past midnight, it's good night from me, Sue Peacock, and from everyone at LWT. Have a good week. Don't forget to switch off your set, will you? Good night.
The weather forecast for the London weekend television area. Saturday is expected to be rather cloudy at times, although there will be some sunshine, and it will remain mostly dry. It's going to continue cold, the temperature only reaching around 0 centigrade, 32 Fahrenheit. The outlook for Sunday, mostly dry and continuing very cold. So it's still a case of winter draws on, but are we downhearted? Of course not. There's a big squeeze for the A-team this Saturday evening at 5:35. I suppose it would have to be a fairly big squeeze, come to think of it. We'll be talent spotting with Tim Brooke-Taylor in the Fame game at 6:30. And at 7:15, Michael Parkinson lets us in on some all-star secrets. At 7:45, we press the action button again when Super Cop T.J. Hooker mounts his black and white and hits the trail of the lipstick killer. Leslie Come On Down Crowther winds us up to a state of gay abandon in The Price is Right at 8:45. And following the news, Michael Aspel's company will be Karen Kay, Kelly Monteith, and that shy retiring Irishman, Frank Carson. Programmes for Saturday night. Saturday morning begins with TVAM's Good Morning Britain. That's at 6:15. London's independent local radio stations, LBC and Capital, will be on the air throughout the night. We at LWT will be back with you again at 9:25. Until then, from me, Lewis, on behalf of our lightly frosted team here on the South Bank, have a refreshing night and a good, and I hope not too chilly, weekend. The time, just past 17 minutes past 2. The weather forecast for the LWT area. Sunday will be a brighter day and it will stay mostly dry. It's going to be very cold, with temperatures only just rising above freezing in the early afternoon. Winds will be light northwesterly, and the outlook continuing very cold and frosty. Talk about your tiny hand is frozen. We'll be meeting the delightful owners of 60 Tiny Fingers at 7:15 this Sunday evening. Michael Aspel travels to Merseyside to visit the Walton family. That's Mummy and Daddy Walton and the world's only girls' sextuplets. We change the mood to wartime espionage in 92 Grosvenor Street. Hal Holbrook and David McCallum star in a dramatic story of the Office of Strategic Services, OSS, at 8:15. 2 hours later, we're knee-deep in Stars of the Music Business for a tribute to Tim Rice, from his very first song, which he sings to the guitar accompaniment of Hank Marvin, right through to a taste of his latest work, Chess. Lyrics by Tim Rice at 10:15. At 11:45, Priscilla Bewley Presley takes us on a tour of Elvis Presley's legendary home, Graceland. Some of our programs for Sunday night. Sunday morning begins at 6:55 with TVAM's Good Morning Britain. London's independent local radio stations, LBC and Capital, will be on the air throughout the night. We'll be back, hard on the heels of TVAM, at 9:25. But for the moment, from me, Peter Lewis, on behalf of our trusty crew manning the South Bank, have a refreshing night and a good Sunday. If you're driving or even walking first thing in the morning, be prepared for very slippery conditions. The overnight temperature in the suburbs could be as low as -6 degrees Celsius. The time now, very nearly 11 minutes past 1. Finally, can I just remind you to switch off your set? Good morning.
Now, if we're feeling brave, let's have a final look at tomorrow's weather forecast for the London area. Sunday will start generally cloudy, and by afternoon there'll be some sleet or snow approaching from the southwest. There could be several inches of snow on the highest ground by the end of the day. Easterly winds will become strong and bitterly cold by tomorrow, and highest temperatures will reach 2 degrees Celsius, that's 35 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, it sounds like just the sort of weather for staying by the fire and watching the television. And looking ahead to tomorrow evening here on LWT, there are plenty of good things in store which I hope will persuade you to do just that. At 7:15, 2 more contestants compete for hundreds of pounds and wonderful prizes in catchphrase. And then at 7:45, Cilla Black says surprise, surprise to unsuspecting members of the public, both in and out of the studio, meeting people like the father who wanted at least one of his sons to become a footballer, and Jessica, the mongrel dog who wanted to meet a Crufts champion. In Crazy Like a Fox at 8:45, Harrison is mortified to find himself linked with the activities of a notorious swindler who drops dead in the young lawyer's office. Facing angry victims at his door demanding money, he finds that there's a lot more to this death than meets the eye. The 9:45 ITN News is followed at 10 o'clock by the first in a brand new satirical comedy series, Hot Metal, which takes the lid off the tabloid world of Fleet Street. Robert Hardy, in his first comedy role, plays tycoon Terence Twiggy Rathbone, who acquires the respected but doomed Daily Crucible and embarks on a series of outrageous circulation-boosting gimmicks. Then at 10:30, the South Bank Show tells the story of the famous Blue Note record label. Since its foundation in 1939, the Blue Note record label has been synonymous with the best in jazz. The list of artists who've recorded for the label reads like a history of the music, names like Sidney Bechet, Thelonious Monk, Miles Davis, and countless others. The label was run for 25 years by 2 German émigrés, Alfred Lion and Frank Wolff, whose commitment to bringing jazz to a wider audience ensured the highest standards in performance, sound quality, and sleeve design. The program tells the Blue Note story through interviews with Alfred Lion, engineer Rudy Van Gelder, and designer Reed Miles, together with stars like Horace Silver, Wayne Shorter, and McCoy Tyner, as well as a rich collection of archive performances by such jazz greats as Albert Ammons and Pete Johnson. And those are programs for tomorrow evening on LWT. Well, that look ahead to tomorrow brings us to the end of today's programmes. But don't forget that if you feel like more company, independent local radio, including the 2 London stations, LBC and Capital, will remain on the air throughout the night. TVAM starts up at 6:55 tomorrow, and we're back at 9:25. So until then, with the time at 25 minutes to 2, this is Ruth Anders, on behalf of everyone here at LWT, wishing you a warm, cosy and restful night. Good night. Now, a last look at tomorrow's weather forecast for the LWT area. Sunday will start cold with fog patches, but the fog will slowly clear. It'll be bright for a time, but cloud will increase during the day, with rain in places by dusk. Temperatures will reach 9 degrees Celsius, that's 48 degrees Fahrenheit, and there'll be a light to moderate southerly breeze. And from tomorrow's weather to a look at tomorrow evening's programmes on LWT. At 7:15, more contestants compete for hundreds of pounds and wonderful prizes in catchphrase. And half an hour later, at 7:45, Cilla is back to say surprise, surprise to unsuspecting people both in and out of the studio. Then in Crazy Like a Fox at 8:45, one of Harrison's clients, a wealthy eccentric, claims that a spaceship has landed in her vineyard, particularly perplexing as her son is trying to take away the family business because of his mother's so-called incompetence, and it's up to the Foxes to unravel the facts from the fiction. The ITN News at 9:45 is followed at 10 by the latest in developments on the Daily Crucible in hot metal. And then at 10:30, the South Bank Show examines the making of the most eagerly awaited British film of 1986. Absolute Beginners is a large-scale musical based on the cult novel by Colin MacInnes about teenage London in 1958 and builds to a climax during the first Notting Hill race riots. It features stars like David Bowie and Sard alongside a number of unknowns. Programmes for tomorrow evening here on LWT. Well, now it's time for us to close down, but if you're not ready to do the same thing and feel like some more company, independent local radio continues programmes throughout the night, and that includes, of course, the two London stations, LBC and Capital. TVAM starts at 6:55 in the morning with Good Morning Britain, and LWT is back on the air at 9:25 with Wake Up London. So, until then, with the time at 16 minutes to 1, from me, Ruth Anders, and everyone here on the South Bank, it's good night. And finally, please don't forget to turn off your television set. Once again, good night.
And now a last look at the LWT area weather forecast. It'll be a bright start to Sunday with some sunshine, but cloud will increase later in the day, bringing rain. This rain turning more persistent towards evening. The afternoon temperatures 8 Celsius, 46 Fahrenheit, with light and rather variable winds. And that's our last look at the weather. Now, before we go, let's have a quick look at Sunday. I hope you've recovered from our film. Oh, I knew there was something I should do. You can open your eyes now. Fine. I suppose after that, rather than I've Got My Love to Keep Me Warm, we should be playing What Is This Thing Called Love? Or Singing in the Rain. Anyway, 7:15 tomorrow evening starts our evening off. Roy Walker hosting the show where contestants have to guess the popular catchphrases to win fabulous prizes. That's catchphrase at 7:15. 7:45, murder, mystery, suspense, and Jaws. What can I tell you about Jaws that you don't already know? Well, you already know it stars Robert Shaw, Roy Schneider, and Richard Dreyfuss. And it's about a man-eating shark that goes on the rampage off the shores of Long Island. Try not to miss it, even if you've seen it once before. Catch it again, it's a wonderful film. 7:45, Jaws. 9:45, it's the ITN News, and at 10 o'clock, Spitting Image. And at 10:30, the South Bank Show. Tomorrow night's programme looks at the soap opera industry, and in particular the new look soaps like Brookside that set out to show contemporary social problems. The programme discusses, amongst other things, that Brookside is no conventional television set, but a real housing estate with real people living next door. That's just some of the programmes for Sunday on LWT. Well, that's it. We've made it to the end of the day. There were a couple of occasions I didn't think we would, but it's fast approaching 12 minutes past 1 o'clock, and we're closing down. But don't forget, independent local radio, including the two London stations, LBC and Capital, are on the air throughout the night. From us all on LWT, this is Keith Harrison, wishing you a very good night. Sleep well. Night-night. And can I just remind you to unplug your television set. Once again, good night.
The weather forecast for the LWT area. After a misty start, Monday will brighten slowly with some sunshine later. The wind will continue light, and the highest temperature will be slightly warmer than Sunday's, 19 degrees Celsius, 66 Fahrenheit. The television working week begins at 6:15 with TVAM's Good Morning Britain. London's independent local radio stations, LBC and Capital, will be on the air throughout. We have come to the end of another London weekend, and thank you for spending some of your time with us. We look forward, of course, to being back with you again on Friday evening at 5:15. Until then, from me, Peter Lewis, on behalf of our finely tempered crew here on the South Bank, well, most of the time anyway, have a refreshing night and a good week. If you're driving early this morning, be prepared for dense fog in places. The time now just past 2 minutes to 1 o'clock. Now, for the last time this weekend, may I remind you to switch off your set. Good morning. The weather forecast for the LWT area. By Saturday morning, any rain will have cleared, but it may remain rather cloudy for a time before it brightens up later in the morning, and there'll even be some sunshine in the afternoon. The highest temperature near 8 degrees Celsius, 46 Fahrenheit, winds light westerly. Nice weather for a spot of adventuring, and that's exactly what the A-Team has in mind when they head for South America in search of Tonya Baker's fiancé, who went to the Amazon to disappear. Some people really do choose their spots, don't they? A feature-length story at 5:35 this Saturday evening. More fiendish stunts will be perpetrated on our unsuspecting persons by Jeremy Beadle. He's about at 7:15. At 7:45, the search for the new face of 1986 reaches its climax when Marty Kane presents the grand final. We continue our series of murder plays at 9:15. Francis de la Tour, Ronald Lacey, and Warren Clark with Annette Crosby star in our Unnatural Causes story, Partners. a tale of frustrated and confused passions. Following the news at 10:30, snooker, the second session of the three-session final. £50,000 to the winning team of the Hofmeister World Doubles. Some of our programmes for Saturday night. Television's Saturday morning begins with TVAM at 6:55. London's independent local radio stations, LBC and Capital, will be on the air throughout the night. We'll be back in a very few hours at 9:25. But for the moment, from me, Peter Lewis, on behalf of all our little barnacles here on the South Bank, have a refreshing night and a very good weekend. The time now, believe it or not, is almost 2 minutes to 3 o'clock. Just before we go out into the night, or is it the morning, may I remind you as usual to switch off your set. Remember the big fight at 9:25. Good morning.
And from tomorrow's weather to a look at some of the programmes tomorrow evening here on LWT. At 6:10, arch-rogue Arthur Daly, alias George Cole, joins Harry Seacombe for a Highway Christmas special, when lots of old friends from past programmes appear. Then at 7:15, Cilla Black hosts the last in the present series of Blind Date and makes it a special programme for the festive season. At 8 o'clock, Leslie Ann Down, Jean Simmons, Elizabeth Taylor and David Carradine, among many others, star in the continuing story of a country about to be split by civil war, north and south. And the 9:50 news from ITN is followed at 10:05 by a seasonal drama, The Christmas Tree. Anna Massey stars as Constance, returning to her hometown of Dublin one Christmas and piecing together a jigsaw of memories, experiences and ghosts from the past, including the sweetheart who would once have married her, played by T.P. McKenna, and the father of her child, played by Simon Callow. Then at 11:40, there's an invitation to join Perry Como's Christmas in London, a musical spectacular featuring the star himself and his special guests Anne Margaret and the Cambridge Buskers. Programmes for Sunday night here on LWT. And that look at tomorrow evening's programmes brings us to the end of our evening with you tonight. If you feel like more entertainment, though, don't forget that you can go on listening to independent local radio, including, of course, the two London stations, LBC and Capital, who'll be broadcasting throughout the night. TVAM starts at 5 to 7 in the morning, and we're back again with you at 9:25. So until then, with the time at 1:30, this is Ruth Anders on behalf of everyone at LWT, wishing you a very good night. And finally, if you're still listening, please don't forget to turn off your television set. Good night.
Now, a last look at the weather forecast for the LWT area. Sunday will begin cloudy with rain, but the afternoon should be drier and a little brighter. It'll be another mild day with temperatures around 11 degrees Celsius, 52 degrees Fahrenheit, and a moderate southwesterly wind. There'll be more rain later on Sunday, lasting overnight and into Monday. And the outlook for Monday, drier, brighter and colder. And that's the weather. And now a look ahead to programmes for Sunday night here on LWT. And at 7:15, Roy Walker hosts another edition of the game show where the aim is to solve the catchphrases. Cilla Black and Bob Carroll-Gees bring some more surprises at 7:45. And at 8:45, the father and son crime-fighting team tackle a murder plot in Crazy Like a Fox. The news from ITN is at 9:45. And at 10, Mel Smith and Griff Rhys-Jones continue their series of lectures on the history of the world as seen through the eyes of Hollywood, with a look at the Napoleonic Wars. Frankenstein and Dracula make an appearance at 10:30, when the South Bank Show explores the origins of two of horror's most famous and enduring myths. The programme also includes excerpts from Ken Russell's new film, Gothic. Programmes for Sunday night here on LWT. And that brings us to the end of tonight's viewing. We're on the air again at 9:25, but before that, TVAM brings you its regular Sunday morning features from 6:55. And for music, news and chat throughout the night, you can tune in to independent local radio. In the London area, LBC and Capital are on the air 24 hours a day. But on behalf of all of us here at LWT, with the time at 21 minutes to 2 exactly, this is Sue Peacock wishing you a very good night. Just a final reminder to switch off your set. Good night.
Now the weather forecast for the LWT area. Easter Monday will be a dry day. It will be bright and at times quite sunny, but also a little chilly. Temperatures around 14 degrees Celsius, 57 Fahrenheit, and there'll be a brisk westerly wind. The outlook for Tuesday, dry and fairly sunny, and it's going to be a bit warmer. Good news indeed. Television's Easter Monday begins with TVAM at 7 o'clock, obviously treating themselves to a bit of a lie-in. London's independent local radio stations, LBC and Capital, will be on the air throughout the night. Here at LWT, we've come to the end of this Easter weekend. Beautiful weather, and we hope that you've enjoyed whatever time you've spent with us. As always, we look forward to being back with you again at our regular start time, Friday evening at 5:15. Until then, from me, Peter Lewis, on behalf of all our riverfolk here on the South Bank, have a refreshing night and a very good week. The time, almost an hour into the bank holiday. It's just past 7 minutes to 1. Now, for the last time this weekend, may I remind you to switch off your set. Good morning.